So I had gone to the forest, the woods near my house to make this video about nature. But after about 5 minutes, mosquitoes, it's a small bug, started eating me alive. That means they started to bite me. And so I quit and I came home. And so now we're doing this class inside where there are no mosquitoes, not in nature. Okay, so we're going to talk about words that we would come across or things we would find when we walk in the forest. Okay? And I'm going to also talk about what else those words can mean. Okay, besides just that thing that you would find. So let's start with nature. What is nature? The simple meaning of nature is something that is not made or influenced by a human, like me, or a person. So something that is not influenced by a person. So everything around us, we, and trees, plants, rivers, mountains, the sky, we say all of this is nature. And that's the basic meaning. But nature can also be used to describe things that happen, and that it's not strange that that happens. It should be that way. So for example, if somebody says something to you that's not very nice, and you say, that makes me angry. And then they say, why does that make you angry? You can say, it's my nature. Well, why is it your nature? Because that is something that is normally what makes other people angry. It's normal. It's common. So it is, we could say, human nature to be angry about certain things. Or it is human nature to be happy when certain things happen. So certain actions that are common for us, that everyone has in certain situations, or emotions that everyone has in certain situations, we can say are natural or our nature. They are our nature or they are natural. So if somebody sees that situation and they can understand why I got angry, because maybe they would also be angry in the same situation or happy in the same situation, whatever, they would say, but that's natural. That's natural. It's your nature. It's natural. It's basically the same thing. But the nature of something isn't only about people. It could be about anything. For example, the nature of exams is to be difficult. Right? The purpose of an exam is to challenge you. So we could say the nature of an exam is to be difficult or challenging. Okay? We could say it is natural for them to be difficult. Okay? So human nature is what is natural for humans, just what we usually do, what is common for us based on certain things. And the nature of something, whatever, the nature of music is to make other people happy. Or the nature of food is to give us energy. Right? That's what it does. That's the normal thing that it does. So any time you have this kind of situation you want to describe, you can say natural and nature. Sometimes we just say naturally as a single sentence. So for example, if somebody does become very happy in a certain situation, maybe they got a promotion, they got a great job, and they say, I'm so happy. I'm so happy about this. You would say, yeah, naturally. Naturally. That means you should be. That's very normal. Okay, so what is natural for us or naturally for us? Or it is our nature. Okay, now let's talk about some certain words. Let's talk about this. What is this? Well, you could say that this is a stone, and you would be right. You could say that it is a rock, and you would be right. But we need to be careful when we say stone and rock, whether we're talking about the material or what we are holding in our hand. So if you're holding this in your hand, you would say it is a stone, the thing. But if you just say stone, then you're usually talking about the material. So for example, the building is made of stone. the building is made of stone. Or we could say maybe it is a stone wall. It is a stone wall. Usually we use stone in that case, but you can say rock as well. So remember, if you have the thing and you want to talk about the object, say stone, rock. And if you want to talk about the material, what it is made of, just say stone or rock. Now, what about a very small stone? Well, you could call a very small stone, a small stone, a small rock. That's okay. But we have a special word for it. The special word is pebble. Pebble. So a pebble is a very small stone or rock with rounded edges usually. So this, you can see, does not have rounded edges. It has very sharp edges. So it's not a pebble, and it's too big to be a pebble. So if it's small, it has rounded edges, it's a pebble. Now, a big stone or a big rock, we could say a big rock, fine. But we often call that a boulder. A boulder is something that you have to climb on to get over. So it's very big, maybe as big as a car. As tall as me, maybe. That might be a boulder. Again, you can call it a big stone, a big rock, but there is a special word that you can use. All right, so now let's go back to rock and stone and talk about how else we can use these words. Well, stone is very strong and solid, right? So sometimes we describe something as made of stone that is not really made of stone. For example, if somebody doesn't show emotion in a situation where it is natural to show emotion, or we would naturally show emotion, you don't show emotion, you just... People might say, oh, he's made of stone, okay? Or stone-faced. So that means the face shows no emotion, or you show no emotion. Made of stone or stone-faced to describe lack of emotion. How about rock? We often describe something as rock solid. Rock solid. So rock is very strong, right? If you push down on it, it doesn't move. If you try to move it, it doesn't move. It's very sturdy, stable. So if, let's say, for example, that I don't become easily upset, and maybe I'm mature, and I have a lot of responsibilities, and I can handle my responsibilities, people might describe me as rock solid. Rock solid. It could mean you can count on them. You know they're very responsible, right? Sometimes it's physical. So if you see a big guy with big muscles, you could say he's solid. Solid as a rock. It's actually a song, Solid as a Rock. So rock solid is something that's very sure, very certain. You can say it for things that are not people, right? So for example, a rock solid promise. That means a promise that will never break. It's rock solid. It will never break. Okay. Let's talk about this leaf. So you probably know the word leaf. Okay, that's very good. Now, a leaf is connected to a tree by a branch. But in between the branch and the tree, you have this thing. What is this called? It's a very important word, actually. This is called a stem. The stem of something is the base of something. It's where it begins. So you have the base here, and it goes up. Now, this is a very important word because it is the sort of core or beginning or seed of something. We can say, for example, I think my interest in ping pong stems from when I was a child and I always played at my grandmother's house. So now I have some interest, and the beginning point of that would be when I was a child. It stems from something, maybe something about your character, right? This person is very, very funny. We could say their sense of humor stems from growing up in a funny family or whatever, okay? Stems from their sense of humor, stems from growing up in a funny family. Maybe everybody is funny in the family, okay? So it's the basic point. It's it's where things begin. And you can say it for problems as well. I think this problem stems from, or the stem of this problem is, and then say what that beginning point is. What that beginning point is. All right, so We have the stem and we have the leaf. What is that connected to? Well, it's connected to a branch. But what if you take the branch off of the tree? Once you take a branch off of a tree and you cut off all the other branches, like this, just like this, it's not a branch anymore. It's a stick. So it changes its name based on what its function is. If it's connected to the tree, it's a branch. When you take it off, now it's a stick. If it's a very small stick, it's called a twig. A twig is a very small stick, a little bit bigger than the stem maybe, and stronger, but it suggests that it's easy to break. So some people would call somebody who is very, very thin and has no muscle a twig. You're such a twig. That means you're so small. So it comes from the small branch of the tree. Now the branches are connected to the main part of the tree, the body of the tree. We call that the trunk of the tree. The trunk of the tree, so the main body of the tree. Well, what else do we use this word for? An elephant's nose is called a trunk. The trunk of the elephant, the long nose of the elephant. Maybe because it looks like a tree trunk. So we could say tree trunk or elephant's nose, trunk. Now, trunk is also used in American English for the back of a car, where you can put your luggage or put something. It's not used all over the world, like Australia and in England, but we say trunk for the back of the car. And I think in Canada they also use trunk. And the other word that they would use in England is boot. They would use boot. So it's the same thing though, basically. A trunk is also where you may keep things in your house. It's on the floor and it has a lid and you open it, like the trunk of your car. Except it's not in your car, it's on the floor. You can put your things in a trunk. So if you've ever seen Harry Potter, all of his things that he takes to school every year, that is his trunk. So let me go back to leaf just for a second. Now I said this word leaf. Leaf can actually be a verb. If you're reading a book and you turn the pages, sometimes we don't say turn the pages. We say leaf through the book, to leaf through the pages. You could say leaf through the book or leaf through the pages. As a verb, to leaf through something. It kind of suggests that you're doing it without reading carefully. You're kind of just, oh, yes, So it suggests that maybe you're just interested in pictures or something like that. But to leaf through something is to sort of look through it quickly, to turn the pages and browse whatever it is that you're looking at. Okay, so the trunk of the tree on the outside has a kind of skin, right? But we wouldn't call the outside of the tree skin. Let's say this part. So this is from a tree, and this is the outside here. It's very thick. We call it bark. It's called tree bark. And tree bark can be very different. This tree bark is gray, kind of gray. And it protects the tree, right? It's basically skin. So how else can we use bark? Well, we actually say that the sound a dog makes is to bark. That dog is barking at that other dog, or that dog is barking at a car. Or why is your dog barking at me? The verb for the sound a dog makes is bark. And it's actually a word called an onomatopoeia, which you don't need to remember, which means a word that comes from a sound. So zip is a word, and it comes from the sound. And drip is a word, and it comes from a sound. And bark is a word, and it comes from the sound that a dog makes. And buzz is a sound that a bee makes, and it comes from the sound. So there are many English words, quack, the sound a duck makes, that come from the sound that you hear, and we try to spell those things, and then we have an onomatopoeia. That's what it's called, although it's not so important to remember that word. You don't get to use it every day. Now, I'm not sure if you can see this clearly. It's very small. This is grass. Okay, it's grass. But what if you want to say one? It's a very small thing, right? And you have one, a piece of grass. A piece of grass. Would you say a piece of grass? No, you wouldn't say a piece of grass. Would you say a leaf of grass? It's kind of like a leaf. No, you wouldn't say a leaf of grass. So what is it? We call it a blade of grass. A blade is something that is long and thin, like a knife, has a blade. The part of the knife that you use to cut things is called the blade of the knife. So because it looks like that, and it's very long and thin, we call it a blade of grass. A blade of grass. Many things that are this shape, that have a long, thin shape and look sharp, we call a blade. Of course, the most common is a knife, the blade of a knife. But you could, for example, say an ice skate, that you have the shoe, and the bottom part that's made of metal is called the blade of the ice skate. The blade, because it looks like that. It's the same basic idea, so we say blade. Okay, so if you have any questions about these, you can ask me on WeChat, and I'll see you next time.